Merry Christmas. What presents do we have today for people? It's going to be awesome. Has this been a wait long enough that we've been doing for a couple of years of enticing people and showing what we can do and making them drool and making them just want to hurry up and move on to better technology? And they finally are here today. Merry Christmas, folks. My name is Brian Mason. You might know me from MMS or my local user group. I've been with 2Point here a couple of years now. These are all the greatest congregation of smart people I've ever worked with, probably in my entire career. Pretty smart people able to tackle something as big as DeployR. This is a big one. This isn't an app.
Aren't any taller. In fact, Denise isn't much taller than him.
This is a task sequence. I mean, this has got power. This is a hard thing to tackle. Knowing MDT going away, and we've got to help people figure out what to do next. And they pulled it off. These guys are geniuses. And we've been showing you slides. You've been seeing demos. You've been to probably our user group or MMS and seen what we've been showing. Consistently at our user group, OSD Day is the biggest day of the year. This is really hot stuff, and it's a hot topic. MMS sessions are always huge on provisioning and autopilot. So we know that you've got a lot of questions after watching these videos. And if you haven't seen them, you should go look at them online. But what we're going to do here is let you ask away. We'll let you unmute. And if you're too nervous to ask something in the question live, you can just put a question in the Q&A and we can get it answered. We've got all the experts here. All the engineers are here. All the inventors of this product are here. So my only ask of you is to ask even the stupid question. Don't feel nervous here. This is a private little meeting between us all, and you can just ask away and figure out how we can help you with this. I'm going to start here with the architect himself, Michael Niehaus.
Yeah, we figured we'd start off with a couple of slides just to tell you where we're at, where we're going, and hopefully seed your brains with a few questions along the way. So if you haven't seen DeployR yet, we are at version 1.0. Version 1.0 has a lot of stuff in it. It's more complete than I think we expected it to be as far as the amount of functionality that's in this initial version. But we don't have, well, we haven't completely eliminated the to-do list. We've got plenty of things that we want to do still as well, based on customer feedback for our initial set of customers and a few things that we want to do as well. So we're working toward that. We do have a plan to try releases fairly frequently, so we will have plenty of new functionality coming out along the way. Along with what we're sure everyone will ask about is a community version as well. So that's on the list. I think Andreas has put together a few things as well here.
Yeah, I knew people would ask a lot about the timelines. So I tried to visualize something. So we did sort of a soft release of V1 here right before Christmas that we've been trying out with a couple of customers. But since we didn't just want to destroy Christmas for people attending this webinar or for other people, we said that we would basically enroll it to the masses sort of in Q1 of the next year. But from our perspective, 1.0 has shipped. So that doesn't mean that we have stopped. So if you click forward here, we're currently working on what we consider some of the features that we want to put in version 1.1. That will probably ship around Q1 timeframe. Where exactly we end that is a little bit ambiguous. Some of the primary things we want to do there is to be able to build our updated support for building from USB. So initially will be two types. One of them is what we kind of called hybrid USB, which when we're basically allowing data to be stored in an encrypted secure way on the USB stick as well as 100% offline. and KV stands for sort of key value. We're wanting to do some better work around variables as well, related with some Pixie related changes that we'll later announce as well. So if we move forward after that, basically, we'll have our 1.2 version, where probably most of it is going to be around automation. And with automation, I mean the ability to seamlessly sort of merge and synchronize a lot of these steps and sequences using some sort of online and repository type system. And as we're working on that, we also have the community side of things, and we're put a timeline for that around probably announcing and giving that out to release to world around MMS timeframe. Now, we don't want to go straight into a wide release for the world. We want to be able to have some sort of preview to make sure that we don't run into 16,000 issues at the same time on day one, but catch those things early. So that obviously have to happen before the release. So probably March, April timeframe is where we start seeing some of these preview being released out for the community version. And then after that, we'll be focusing on some of the other things. We have some strong ideas and things around push, i.e. being able to push from the console to upgrade clients or to execute task sequences. We have the thing that we're not allowed to call UDI because Michael doesn't like that term. So it's not UDI, but there will be some sort of UI element to things. And we have some pretty good and exciting plans around that. That will actually be my 5th attempt to create a user-driven installation together with task sequences. So we'll see if the swamp castle sort of plan works out, and that will be as good as we anticipate it to be. And then after that, we're looking more, as we now have the push and some of the UDI things, there are things that we want to do around the driver and apps improvements. And you will probably get what some of those are when we're talking about UDI or non-UDI, but the UI piece. Yeah. So that's sort of the general timeline. And I think I have a slide on what is in which version a little bit. This isn't a final slide, but it's what we're working towards. So we shipped the blue DeployR Enterprise piece for the first version here. And as we're adding and removing things over the years, there will be a change. It's not going to be a completely static list. So things will change a little bit. And it's not so much that we don't want to give away technology. What we're trying to avoid is that we end up in a support nightmare or release things that is very cumbersome or complicated to configure or run. So we are aware of a couple of those things that we're trying to simplify. And as those are simplified, they will probably be released into the product, even for the community side of things. But this at least gives you something to go back to understand what is in what version. Do we have any questions regarding this so far? Then I think we had a couple of demos as well. Or I can talk more about the whole UDI thing as well if people.
I have demo slides in the deck more as a backup. We can also do live demos based on the questions, so we'll keep it open.
So now's the time if you want to unmute yourself and ask away. Got some time here, and all the best, guys. And if you don't have any questions, I got a million myself, and I've been working here for a couple of years with these guys, so I still don't know everything, and I get a lot myself. So feel free to unmute right now and ask away.
Not so much a question, but you mentioned UDI and being able to talk more about that. That's definitely the thing I want to see the most.
All right. Well,
Yeah, but we're not allowed to call it UDI. I have PTSD from that term. One of these days, if I ever have had multiple drinks, I'll tell you all about it. But since I don't drink.
I think we could probably skip to I have a hidden slide after your demos. I don't know if you can quickly navigate to that one. I can probably try to explain a little bit what we're trying to do. So over the years, we had a lot of people build custom user interfaces in their, oh, you're on a Macintosh, so you can't show my nice little emoji things there, but they're basically checkboxes in the deck there. But we had a lot of people build custom UIs that runs in sequence. Then we had a lot of people build sort of web pages that is also then designed to drive the installation, sort of for like your help desk level 1 or service desk or for your end user technicians. So what we want to build on is the logic that we put into the step definitions in DeployR. If you're not aware of it, you have the ability to create your own steps, so that you can actually build your own complete own step and then define what should be the questions for that script that you want to do the actual change. So we want to hook up basically web service, database calls, and all sorts of things in that. But we then want to be able to take that UI element to be able to show it in sequence. So if you have a step that requires user input, the sequence will then stop natively when it reaches that step and prompt the user for whatever things. So you will be presented with more or less the same web UI, but on the actual machine that you're deploying. Obviously, some people want all of the questions to come ahead before the sequence starts, so we'll be able to support that as well. So we will sort of traverse the sequence and find any steps where we have data that is not collected. And you probably want to be able to have the ability to combine with a sort of simple upfront wizardry type for the technician, and then maybe end with a sort of user-driven sort of UI that the end user themselves could actually select and do. And this is then driven through the same user interface and the same navigations that you have in the DeployR natively. We also want to be able to sort of take this and create an administrative user interface in DeployR, where like technicians or help desk staff or whoever you want then have the ability to sort of pre-stage the settings. But it will utilize the same logic, so you can have a more advanced option for the technicians, and if there is no pre-staged content, they will be presented with a web UI, or if there is a combination of two, they will then be merged together. Also, we have the sort of the blue bit is some of our customers want the answers to be given or select different build settings from the iPXE prompt, so really early before the boot image even has started. And we want to be able to translate that piece then to the iPXE prompt-based logic as well, so that you can build user interfaces and custom scripts, but without or with very little sort of scripting experience. Obviously, if you are good at PowerShell and doing a lot of things, this will sort of be no end to what mess you can actually create for yourself. We're aware that UDI quite often turns into enormous projects, so we're trying to lock down the scope a little bit so that people don't create a complete mess for themselves. Probably over the years, a lot of people have built enormous task sequences, and then basically when the guy that built it quits, nobody else is skilled enough to actually take it over. So we're trying to do it sort of simplified this time to make things easier. So fewer steps in the sequence, more logic driven by smarter scripts. I think that's sort of the general idea for the non-UDI feature set. And I think with it, we want to really be able to replace any sort of custom UI or logic that people have built over the years. And we're aware that some people have invested heavily into the MDT sort of task sequence logic. So we've been playing around with a way to simulate or sort of hijack the task sequence engine so that existing binaries or existing scripts actually works natively out of the box.
Thanks, Andreas. Danny, you got a question. Do you want me to read it for you, or do you want to just come off mute and ask away?
No, I admit I can ask it myself too. I had some problems with my webcam falling into a candle. Sorry for that. I have a question. I see that the pricing for public and private is different, and I understand the reasons where that come from. We have other vendors too that do that, and it's getting more and more complex as we see more and more public and private here in Benelux working together, and also a lot of commercial private service providers work for public sector, and therefore I thought, wouldn't it be easier to make just one pricing for everyone? Sometimes I really have to investigate if it's public or private.
Yeah.
Should I take that one?
You can.
So what we do for MSPs and other services related companies who are dealing with both private and public, we do a single price and we do a blended model.
Okay, excellent.
So that is possible. We just don't publish that on our website, but absolutely.
That answers it all. Thank you very much.
And I think we also historically have always said no to sort of per build pricing and other types of ways to price it. But we are, I wouldn't say that we're closing down those discussions, but we haven't had we haven't found or talked to a customer that come up with a great model. Some people, of course, want to only pay for one license and then build their master images for their VDI installations, and they got 300,000 VDI clients, right? And they only want to pay for one license.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're saying no to that; it's that we're saying yes, you can use the public version, right? But at the same time, we have to protect to make sure, like, if we go bust, right, and this falls over and we don't make any money on it, like, then we didn't actually, the world has sort of lost a good way of doing it. So there has to be a balance, but what exactly that is, we don't really know.
No, that's clear. I have nothing to mention about the pricing itself, but more about making more. It's difficult to make the perfect concept for this. I completely understand. Yeah, but thanks for your reply. It works.
No problem.
Thanks, Danny. All right, folks,
You're welcome.
ask up. You took the time to come here. Go ahead and come off mute and ask a question. If you don't, I can do this all day. I can ask millions of questions. I'll give you like 10 seconds and then I'm jumping in.
I got a question. Looking through the documentation and seeing the link for the community version, the documentation has a prerequisite for StifleR, but the community version says it doesn't, which I understand why. But how does that limit it DeployR?
So if we go back to the slide, if you go back one slide, Michael, it will still ship even the community version, and we've been going back and forth on this. So it's not 100% set in stone, but there are good reasons why we're building it on the old StifleR code base. So StifleR, well, like if we answered that question first a little bit, why are we building on StifleR? So there is a lot of things that Stifler does that we're already written code for that we don't want to rewrite or put in another code base. So we're utilizing a lot of that behind the scenes. So for instance, authentication, authorization, the whole RBAC layer actually lives in the Stifler product. Like Stifler itself, which is the bandwidth and throttling piece, you might not be interested in at all, but we're not interested to rewrite the RBAC logic in another place. So what we're doing is that the stifle piece will slowly merge as a feature set into a different type of product. We're working under the name Platform R, which will be our shared user interface, shared administration logic, and et cetera, and the database storage for a lot of the things. So currently, yeah, it's a bit confusing. But if you understand the logic that the Stifler service side and the UI will be taken forward, and Stifler itself will become a feature in the future in that product set. And that is where it will have a sister product, which is DeployR, but it will still live within that framework.
Yeah,
so that's sort of the answer why it's in StifleR and why you need it, right?
Yeah, so the X in the column under DeployR community for StifleR is more of an asterisk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and you work. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so then there's obviously currently today in StifleR a whole bunch of things, right? But since this page is already filled with, quite high level things, there are things that we'll probably taking forward. I think the general plan currently is not to ship the client, the StifleR client piece as part of the DeployR community. There might be changes for that, but it's currently out of scope. So we're trying to build the whole DeployR community side without the actual Stifler client. But a lot of this is based on your feedback as well. Like what we're trying to do is to minimize the complexity needed for people that run DeployR community. And it's a really fine balance to have something that is still usable for a company with 20,000 desktop as well as 25, right? And that is super simple to spin up and to get value from. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. I guess you still continue where you'll move to PowerShell 7.5 then once you later on in the process.
We're using 7.4 because it's a long-term servicing release. So the next move will be to 7.6.
Oh.
That primarily aligns with the underlying use of the .NET Core pieces as well. So we're using .NET 8, which is aligned with PowerShell 7.4. .NET 9 was PowerShell 7.5. .NET 10 is PowerShell 7.6. PowerShell 7.6 is still in preview at this point, even though .NET 10 has been released. So we probably won't look at .NET 10 and PowerShell 7.6 until they're both somewhat stable.
Yeah.
The usage within DeployR is independent of the usage on the OS itself. So the PowerShell 7.4 engine is actually embedded in DeployR, so you can run 7.5 or 7.6 on your servers or workstations and not interfere with our use of PowerShell 7.4. But we will tend to stick to the long-term servicing releases of PowerShell just because they have more than a short support timeframe for Microsoft.
Thank you. One more question about endpoint count. Is that total Windows count, total what do you define as an endpoint? That might be a stupid question, but I just wanted clarification.
I think it's a great question. And the answer is sadly not as great. Because it goes back to the thing, like we want to build one master image and deploy it to 300,000 devices, or we want to be able to build 10 devices every day for the next foreseeable future, or we want to take 300,000 machines from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Like all of those three different cases, the three personas that is acquiring technology have a different view of what a client is. But typically we try to like be fair to us and like don't say that you're going to deploy one machine if you've got 25,000 that you're going to utilize the technology on. But if you have, let's say, 50,000 Linux machines and 10,000 Windows, there's no point necessarily if you're ever going to use this technology on the Linux side, even though you could, why should you license for it? So it's more of a discussion point when you're actually signing up and buying it.
But we do support Windows, Linux, Chrome, and most people just take away their servers in terms of their endpoint count of the total being managed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in an education environment. I mean, most everything gets redone in the summer, but not all systems get re-imaged over a certain base. So just curious as to how that count worked. Thank you.
Yeah, we played around by having sort of an allocation pool that you can pull from. But at the same time, we want to give you as much value as possible. Like we don't want to give you like something that, hey, we shouldn't use this because then it counts towards a license, right? Then we're fighting ourselves on our own licensing terms.
Yeah, typically most customers license for the total number of endpoints they manage so that they can also cater for break, fix, and any other scenarios, even if you need to just be able to pixie boot into autopilot, many different scenarios so you can cater for it all, whether or not you're doing a bare metal build.
That sounds good. Thank you.
All right, we've got a question from the Q&A from Matt Bradley asking about the recover our part with firmware. Is that 2-point solution to deal with what happened in the CrowdStrike outage?
It's more of a solution to deal with end users wanting to rebuild in sort of any type of infrastructure, whether that is from home or from a coffee shop, etc. The firmware integration pieces typically operates on Wi-Fi, although it works on Ethernet as well. Typically, our research shows that most sort of end users don't even have an actual Ethernet cable at home. I think the technical audience is different. I think I probably have about 500 Ethernet cables at home. But a lot of them wants to build over Wi-Fi. And all of the different OEMs are doing different types of work there. What is common across all of them is that they don't currently work with sort of any enterprise Wi-Fi that is certificate-based. So they only really work with sort of home. They also don't work with sort of online signing portals, etc. But for regular type home networks that normally don't use certificates, etc., it works really well. So that is the part of that. So we're building out the tool set to sort of help you to deal with that regardless of which OEM you're actually utilizing.
Thanks. Caleb Hodgetts has got a question asking, is there a time where you need more than one DeployR server? And how would that work?
We've generally avoided that so far. There are generally two reasons that people looked at multiple servers for MDT or something like that in the past. One would be you want kind of the dev test production environment, and the other was more for getting content closer to the clients themselves. I guess a third scenario plays in as well, where you have it kind of the corporate structural administrative differences, and each person wants to have their own. But from a technical perspective, we want to make sure that we can enable a single server to service even large enterprises, because you're not deploying that many machines at once. So it becomes more of a question of, can we still get good network performance and network throughput for remote clients, even if we don't have a server at that location? And generally, with effective caching of content, we should be able to do that. That's not to say that there won't be some scenarios where you may need multiple servers, but certainly we're trying to keep that to a minimum.
Let's keep expanding on that part. Is if I had more than one, could I export from one DeployR server a task sequence and import it to another?
Today, yes, we do that via scripts. Everything that's in the DeployR server is accessible via web services, and then we build PowerShell scripts around that to be able to do imports and exports. So Gary's done a lot of things like that where we'll move things from lab environments to demo environments or things like that. So certainly we have plenty of scenarios where we need to move things around between different servers, but yeah.
And I think we'll probably also want to have the ability to support both community-driven repositories of sequences and data, like what the PSD team built on top of MDT, but also the likes of to sort of harness what a lot of the community stuff is done. Like some of it is on PowerShell Gallery, some of it is like floating around. But we tried to, since we own the actual engine set and the pieces, we want to be able to create a sort of automatic ability to like to publish and to receive updates. So let's say you're utilizing this as part of a third-party provider, and that third-party provider can then have their own repository for their customers that lock down to only them, but at the same time also being able to take in data set that is in the open, that is in the community aspect of things. So we started playing to see how can we, it's more or less, how can we make something as technology like Git, make it so easy to understand and use for technicians that typically only want to type command lines and not do any scripting. They definitely don't want to deal with any version control. How can we still make it automatic for them to update when Mike Terrell releases a new sequence that configures the TPM chips, right? Because there will be multiple versions over time, but how can we take a versioning control to that is understandable and easy to use and at the same time secure?
Okay, folks, don't be shy, ask up. In the meantime, I got one question of myself because I know a lot of you might be thinking of it is DeployR better than MDT? This is supposed to be next generation imaging, right? Is it better?
I'll let Michael answer that first.
I mean, from a technology-based perspective, yes, MDT was built around file shares, VBScript, and HTAs and MMC snap-ins, and file shares are okay. They're just kind of limiting as far as the scenarios that you can support. But the rest of that technology stack that MDT is built around is effectively dead. So if nothing else, just the modernization of everything is a strong benefit on top of DeployR. Now, at least along the way, as you re-implement something, you remember what you screwed up the first time around. So I know what was done wrong in MDT and made sure to fix it as I was going through this time and creating a new setup. So a lot of the things that were cumbersome in MDT are now easy in DeployR. So I think we've made a lot of improvements along the way.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary. I mean, I think this is both mine and Michael's fourth attempt to build a deployment solution. So we definitely learned from what wasn't great in the previous work that we did. We tried to remember what was good and keep some of that. But that doesn't mean that we won't screw up in a whole new wonderful way. But that's for other people to decide whether it's better. But I think the tool set is built much more around the ability to operate anywhere. So you will be able to re-image over the internet or from your local servers, and having better tool set to maintain the life cycle and the maintainability of things that you create. So you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You can still get a lot of value by harnessing in the community and the published things so that will come to the public repositories. And that was really hard or it was very error prone in MDT or Configuration Manager, because people would copy down a version of a script, run it, and then 2 days later, somebody found an issue on it and it was republished. But if you weren't on that blog to see that there was an updated version, you would run into that problem straight away. So we will try to be able to tell you that, hey, you're using something that there was an issue from, and you should really upgrade this piece before you run into any of these issues.
Can I ask about, so on the slide that you have right now, we were talking about those red X's. Do those, when they say not supported, does that mean self-supported or not available?
It's a mixture of things. So if you take for instance, the peering of DeployR content, which we say maybe later, that is because if we were to currently deploy that into and sort of demand that people use peer-to-peer for certain aspects, we'll potentially run into all sorts of different issues with like customers or people's networks that they run into. So we're trying to avoid things that's going to clog us down on the support side of things. Like for instance, some of the themes and visualization piece is a little finicky to get going. It's all there, but until it's really easy and simple to utilize, we're sort of holding off with some of those things. And of course, there is a balance to we will have to, as a company, try to actually make an income and a living. Otherwise, we can't take this forward. But the primary aspect of things are to avoid people running into supportability issues. A customer could easily take our logic and to implement their own 802.1x support, right, in their environment. So it just means that we won't be shipping any parts particularly around that in the community version as in the beginning.
Okay.
But we're open for feedback. So if people see something that like we have to have this in community because otherwise Christmas and Santa is not coming this year, then we're open for a discussion around that.
So Brett LeBayer is asking if we could go into detail on export and import. Is it everything per sequence, configurable?
Yeah, so what you might not know is that we spend an enormous amount of time on the actual back end of this DeployR solution. Michael was huffing and puffing in the beginning when he started because there were a lot of issues with it. But we have a sequence is not stored in the database as one big blob as it is in Configuration Manager. It's actually stored per row, per step that you have, with its independent actual version stored to that. So if someone later down the line is to publish an actual updated step, we have the ability to figure out that in this sequence, this is the only step, and we know exactly which command line you changed from the default step definition to the new one. So it should be very simple for us to highlight and say, there is a new script here. You haven't changed any of the underlying data point. You just have a custom option here, which is fine, and we can automatically update you to the latest version. So to answer the question is that it's really down per individual step definition. And within a step definitions, that is sort of broken down between variables, the command line, and the script itself. And each one of those, we will be able to detect where the changes are.
And if you can see my screen, I was just showing the basic commandlet support that we have in DeployR. So the basic steps are to import the PowerShell module, then authenticate.
Are you able to zoom that at all?
Not
Remember, you
easily.
got that 4K show off monitor.
Yeah. See, do I have zoom it on this machine?
Should be able to just scroll with control on your mouse if you have a little scroll thingy on your mouse, no? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
do that. Do it that way. So
That's
import,
better.
authenticate, and then you can get lists of objects like task sequences or whatever. So the import export is basically then just specifying where you want to export them to. And in this case, it would export all of them, but if you wanted to filter that, you could do individual ones, or you could do whatever sort of where clause you want in the middle of that. So it's pretty flexible as far as what you want to do, but basically everything that you can see inside of the web page, you can query via PowerShell as well.
And obviously, we would then want to build a user experience in the UI directly to be able to synchronize, like publish, synchronize, or update the step definitions, as well as sequences. Let's say Mike Terrell releases the BitLocker sequence, right? You then subscribe to the entire sequence. You might only use one step out of it, but even when there's an update to the sequence, we will be able to say, hey, you're using this step from this sequence that you downloaded. It's been updated. Do you want to test the actual version? And I don't know if you've seen in the product on some of the videos or if you played with it already, but we have sort of a built-in logic that we're currently not really using, which is when things are in development versus when they're being published out to be used. So we want to be able to create, let's say you're on version 1 of your sequence with lots of borrowed pieces. We will say that there are 6 updates to the sequence from various places, and give you a UI where you can then basically, okay, take me to the latest versions and put all of that in development so I can test that sequence without touching my prod sequences. And when you verify that everything is working, you can then lift that up from in development up to active. And if anything goes wrong, you can then take your deprecated sequence and put it back to active, and take your active and put it back into development. Which to do something like that in MDT or Configuration Manager, you basically had to copy the entire or snapshot your VMs or do all sorts of hellish. And to merge somebody else's script was basically a manual exercise. That depending on how you were with that, it was another very different avenue of pain. Especially if you had a sort of an outsourced IT, let's say you outsource operation to a third-party team where you have to give them a written change letter, right? It's very convoluted. Now, hopefully within here, you can just tell the ops team to lift this sequence from development to active and take the active one back to basically deprecated.
That's just amazing. That's pretty cool tech.
Well, that's where, like, we spend a lot of time troubleshooting these platforms, and a lot of it was that people had copied the wrong thing, had the wrong version, had the old version, etc. So since then, things like GitHub and a lot of other things have come along, and Git provides a very good way to programmatically merge content. So it makes sense, but it means that we had to build a technology in a different way. So the data storage for a whole sequence is actually per row, per command, or basically per step piece.
Slick. All right, folks, ask up. We've still got a little bit of time left. If you don't, I still got a huge list of my own questions. Don't be shy.
It's worth mentioning too that I've got, I forget how many task sequences here, but say 20 something. But the list that I get by default client side is shorter than that because there are things that I have in here that I just don't want to show. Mainly just because there are always things that IT people are working on that they don't want the technicians to necessarily see while it's a work in progress, so they're hidden. But they can be shown with the most non-obvious UI possible. There's actually a button up here. Click the button, and then it would show you all of the task sequences that are available. Now, in this case, all of mine are available, so that didn't actually do anything. But if there were some that were marked as in development, they would show up in italics to show that they're effectively still works in progress. It's like if I were to edit one of these, I could change its status from active to in development, save it. And now it's disappeared from the list. If we turn that back on again, there it's showing as hidden. Basically that it's available for you as a technician because you know the secret button's there, but otherwise it's hidden from the normal users.
Is there a subreddit or Discord space that people should be using to be able to ask questions as they come up on their own?
We do have a subreddit for DeployR, for StifleR, for 2Pint as a whole. So yeah, you can find those out there. They haven't been too busy yet.
But hopefully, like as the community edition and more people start utilizing the enterprise side of things, there will be more questions there as well.
Can we go around and ask everybody what they're most excited about in this release? What feature they like the most?
Sure. And we're happy to demo things as well if they have specifics around how something works. I did paste a picture in the chat with sort of for people that are not aware of how to visualize changes or what Git really is. It gives you an understanding of what and how we will utilize this to merge the changes. So we'll display that you modified this script, but Mike Terrell's updated TPM script has some changes to it, and these are the changes, and then they can basically either just take the changes as is or they merge with their changes. We hope and think that people will be able to utilize this to basically figure out how things are actually working.
I'd like to get Mike, Gary, and Nicholas and Matthias in here too, if they got any kind of thing they want to bring up before we finish this, something like that they're really excited about that people should know.
Yeah, I threw some of my thoughts in the chat already. I just love that I can build it anywhere. So I've got my on-prem version, and then I've got the one out in Azure. I love that it will pull from cloud sources, so I can have it just pull the OS or drivers right from the cloud. But then I've also liked the fact that from Azure, I just have it actually just peering. So once I've got one device downloaded here locally in my lab, the rest of them just peer, and I didn't have to do any extra setup. So I actually just use all my own content most of the time because of the peering that's built in. And then being able to have it authenticate to Entra has been really slick, because then I can I don't have to worry so much about some of my stuff being out in the cloud, because I know that if they can't auth and then do MFA, they can't run anything anyway. And then just the PowerShell. I love PowerShell, so the fact that I can do all these things with PowerShell, it's been actually a lot of fun.
I would add to that, the flexibility and the extensibility of the product is kind of second to none. That's something that we got with the configuration manager, but I would say DeployR is even more extensible than configuration manager was. And the beauty of it is that we own the whole stack, so we can pretty much make it do whatever we need to make it do.
I had a question in the chat there a little bit about if we can search on individual devices like serial number when the last sequence was successfully, or what was the error. So the tracking is in there already. We're adding the ability to search, for instance, on serial number and asset tag, as well as some of the other key elements for specifically around OS deployment. And when it comes to the error tracking, we're also actually took the Microsoft error tool internally, and back in May, Michael did some really good work on that. So we will put that also into all of our product sets. So that will be a platform R wide thing that you will be able to search any sort of hex code that will actually give you exactly what that comes from within all of the different pieces. So, and that will also be available online. So if you buy a simple URL, like 2ps.err or something like that, you will be able to translate your favorite hex code, so you don't actually have to go and Google it. We'll tell you exactly what it is. And we'll be also adding some information around some of them that are known on what they actually come from. So that is some of the data set that we're adding. Another set of data set is also around Mac vendors, etc., to know which type of network interface. Is it a Realtek card? Is it an Intel card, etc.? The whole hardware management side is a track that we're working on in Platform R. Obviously, we're doing it mostly for DeployR, i.e. because we had to do that around the drivers. And I think we could spend an hour to talk about just how we do hardware management together with the Alias system that we built, and we're sort of inspired by the PSD people and how they did things. And we think that we've added some really good logic around that.
So this console you're looking at now, which is extremely cool, is this something that we can grant this console read access to our technicians so they can view this stuff, but obviously not?
Yep, it is. There's a limitation that we're trying to work on here in Q1, is that a lot of it you have to drill down, because this is sort of designed to be able to show for several thousand locations, building machines everywhere. And it isn't currently in the product the way that you can follow a single deployment that happens in multiple places at the same time, other than like you can't do it in real time. But we want to be able to show that in real time too. Currently, you have to refresh the page, so it's sort of at a higher level up in the browser. But yeah, you can delegate that out to your different help desk or end user technicians.
Nicholas or Tess, you guys have any one-off things you want to say about your favorite feature or anything?
Maybe not the favorite feature, but the whole thing. I mean, it's a completely new OSD solution built from the ground up. I think it's pretty cool, and it's built from with the cloud in mind, kind of what Gary was saying earlier. Fully support OSD over internet. Really excited about that.
So is all that cloud stuff that Gary's talking about documented in our online that people can figure out how to do themselves?
It's more so just setting up your instance in an Azure VM, and then from there you can use your boot media from anywhere.
Does DeployR have a history database similar to StifleR, or is that a feature that could be a wish list item at all? So
No,
I
it
could
does
track,
indeed.
X devices got imaged, we did 27 last week kind of thing and 30 the week before.
Yeah, no, it is indeed. So it's stored, I think we store up to 120 days. Currently, it's configurable, and that stores the individual track status. And after that, we're looking to summarize that as well, so that you can actually get summarization later down the line.
And you would access that through the dashboard itself, or is that being dumped to SQL, like the SQL Express for the?
So it's currently, well, we have both. We haven't really decided exactly what to ship, but we'll probably ship the general, which sits in our ECENT databases. If you want to, at the time when we're summarizing, for us to ship it to SQL, that could potentially store a larger volume than we can store. We're probably open for that.
Okay, good. Because I know one of our issues right now with imaging through Configuration Manager is, we get asked, how many images did last year? And we're like, we don't know. We don't track that. So that definitely would be something my organization would be interested in having.
The problem when summarizing is that you don't know what you're going to be looking for like 2 years later down the line, right? So it's sometimes good to have the data. And we thought of actually shipping like log sets. So instead of just summarizing, also store off to disk so that we can keep the backup people happy and have large data sets of historic data that you can actually go and look through if you ever need it. I think one of my favorite features that we actually put in here right before Christmas is also any step. We did that for the CM tracking as well, that any step that is taken longer than, I think, default 30 seconds, or maybe it was less, we're actually storing information which step that was. So you can actually then get a historic view of like, why is this sequence all of a sudden taking 2 hours when it took 1 hour yesterday? And we'll then defer the difference between if this was download time or if it was actual execution time as well of that step.
Ditto, that's my favorite as well. I know I've been asking for that.
It's huge, right? People don't know if that one is download or what's going on. It's the first thing people want to find out.
Yeah, and especially if people change things. So they change things around a little bit and then all of a sudden something is much slower. Is that because of something normal or is something erroring, or like it's really hard to know once the sequence completed.
All right, we are almost at the top of the hour, so get your questions in now while you can. This is your last shot forever for the year.
Yeah, my favorite is, of course, Wi-Fi support, since when a lot of customers are moving from MDT, they also move to the cloud. And when they start realizing they want to build from home, most home users doesn't have a cable. So we need to support Wi-Fi. And we do that by using a WinRE image instead of a WinP. And Michael made it super easy to do that. So when you create the boot image, you just select a WinRE image instead, and it will add the support automatically in the background as long as you add the drivers for your boot image.
It's funny, it's the real Wi-Fi support versus the fake one that I remember Microsoft did years ago with their wall of fake imaging that all smoke and mirrors. All right. I guess we should wrap this up at the top of the hour here. Be respectful of your time, let you go spend time with your families. I'd just say hats off to the entire team for making this thing happen. This is a heck of a gift to come before Christmas and see this is released. Thanks for taking the time to come and ask your questions. We'll be here forever. You'll find us in that Reddit thing on a subreddit online where you can still ask questions. We'll continue to put out more videos and more documentation and watch this thing grow and get really powerful. And with
Thank you for
that-
hosting, Brian.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Do you have
Thanks
snow
for
in
looking all
snow
Christmassy.
snow in Minnesota?
Of course, yeah. It's but the upside is as of yesterday, the days get longer. So we're gonna crawl our way out of this now.
Yeah, we at least have frost now.
I want to get out of here and go see some palm trees or something.
I think we got one question, one latecomer.
Answer that.
Somebody
Where are
raised
you?
their hand. Maybe they've pushed the wrong button.
I'm not seeing it. Feel free to ask one last question, folks, before we drop, because I'm going to hit the end event and kill this. Going once, twice. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good new year, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank
happy
you.
holiday.